Close the requested format and familiarize yourself with the Quanda and chat functions. We appreciate your participation and look forward to an engaging and insightful discussion today. MC for this session is 𝐦𝐚𝐬𝐿 from the Asian Development Bank Institute.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and very warm welcome to today's webinar, Urban Development Master Plans for Shaping Prosperity Lesson from Asia Pacific, organized by Asian Development Bank Institute. My name is 𝐦𝐚𝐬𝐿, and I will getting us started today. Before handing over to our distinguished session chair and speakers, we will begin. Let me share a few quick house rules to make sure that we have a smooth and engaging sessions. So for all participants are on mute by default. And please use the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen to submit a question at any time. And we will address as many as we can later. And you are also welcome to use the chat box for the comments and the reactions. And the webinar is also being recorded and will be made available after the event. And we will have an interactive polling throughout the session, so please stay engaged. And for the first polling, so my colleague, could you help me to launch? So I'm asking the participant to fill out. So for the first question, how is the traffic in your city today? Okay. Could you help me to fill out? Okay. Oh, wow, very interesting. Okay. Okay, we can end the poll. Audi, can you show the result? Okay. Wow. It's a little bit slow. So for the second question, could you help me to show the second question? The second, how have you ever been involved in an urban planning process in your city? Could you help us to fill out this question? Yes, directly, no. Okay, very interesting. Okay. Okay, Adi. Okay. Could you, okay, we are still waiting. So please kindly fill this question. Okay, Adi, could you show the result to everyone? It looks like that many of us know that struggle with the city traffic based on the answer. And then, okay, well, that's exactly what today's conversation on urban master planning is so important and so personal for all of us, right? So before we dive in, let's take a quick group photo. So I'd like to invite all our distinguished speakers and panelists to turn on their cameras. And my colleague Noriko-san, she will help us to taking picture. So Noriko-san, okay, wait a second. All good, Noriko-san? Okay. 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 So 1, 2, 3, smile, everyone. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more time. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you very much for all panelists. Now it's my great pleasure to invite Professor Bambang Brodjonegoro, our Dean and CEO of the Asian Development Bank Institute, to set the context for today's session. So Professor Bambang will deliver the opening remarks and then continue as our session chair for the first session and guiding us through the 3 presentations from Indonesia, Japan, Thailand case, and followed by Q&A discussion after all speakers gave the presentation. So, Dean Bambang, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vika. Very good afternoon, everybody, and very warm welcome to all of you joining us today from across the Asia Pacific region and beyond. Let me begin with a perspective that I believe should inspire us. By 2050, nearly 2.5 billion more people will live in cities than they do today. The great majority of that growth will happen here in Asia and the Pacific. Our regions will be, in a very real sense, building the urban future of the world. And we have the privilege of doing so right now with more knowledge, more tools, and more regional experience than any generation before us. The scale of growth brings with it an extraordinary opportunity to shape how billions of people will sustainably live, move, and prosper. The choices that policymakers and citizens make today about urban forms will define cities for generations. And that is precisely why the decision we make in anticipation of growth matters so much. Urban Development Master Plan, where this decision to take shape, they serve as declaration of the city we aim to build. This is where infrastructure will go, how land will be used, how people will move, and how growth will be structured. When it is done well, they are among the most powerful tools in public policy. They determine whether a city becomes a compact, connected engine of opportunity, productive, inclusive, and resilient. Across our region, we have gained valuable experience in transforming a bold plan into a living city, understanding that the gap between vision and realization depends not only on technical capacity, but also on strong institution, coordination across government levels, and ongoing commitment. This is precisely the core question this webinar explores, not whether cities should plan, but what truly effective planning requires. What sets apart a master plan that genuinely meets its promise? We are fortunate to have three outstanding cases to draw on. Indonesia brings us to the challenge of aligning urban and metropolitan plans with national development and infrastructure priorities, and Bappenas, National Development Planning Agency, has been at the center of that important work. Bangkok offers a valuable Southeast Asian perspective on coordinating rapid urban growth within complex administrative structures, and Japan, through decades of integrating land use with transport investment, stands as perhaps the most instructive long-term example of what sustained, coordinated metropolitan planning can achieve. These are not theoretical exercises. They represent hard-won wisdom directly relevant to the work many of you are leading in your own cities and institutions. Our afternoon is structured around two questions at the heart of planning practice in this region. First, how do we move from plan to delivery? Closing the gap through strong institution, financing, and adaptive implementation. And second, how do we integrate land use and transport in ways that make cities genuinely more efficient, inclusive, and resilient? These are not merely technical questions. They are questions of leadership, governance, and the collective will to build cities that work for everyone. I look forward very much to the conversation ahead. So let me try to come up with my observation on the three cities that we are going to discuss in a minute. I mean, if we compare the three cities, Jakarta, Bangkok, and Tokyo, clearly the discussion about public transportation, especially rapid mass transit, will be the important message for each of the planning of these three cities. Of course, Tokyo is the most advanced, not only in Asia, probably also in the world. And if we look at Tokyo today, we can see that not many people really, driving on the road. They prefer to take any type of public transportation, especially, of course, subway, aside from the bus. And then if you look at the Bangkok, I think the revolution that has been made in Bangkok is the introduction of the light rail scheme, in which people in Bangkok started to adjust their daily rhythm from being vehicle-oriented people into public transit-oriented people. And you can see now in Bangkok, the light rail train system has been well connected with majority of the buildings, especially on the center of Bangkok, and also connecting to the residential area. And of course, Jakarta would be behind compared the two cities in terms of public transportation. But we know that Jakarta is trying to catch up. So starting with the MRT, which is the subway system, the very first subway system in Indonesia, that now has been extended. Plus, they try to combine the subway system with the LRT, light rail train system, as well as with the bus system. So at the end, Jakarta is also trying to orient itself into a public transit oriented city. So I think there are similarities, and of course, we really hope that every speaker will also discuss about the TOD related to the public transportation, because in Tokyo, for example, I think TOD has been a well-integrated part of the urban planning in Tokyo. So every new major development in Tokyo usually applies the TOD approach. And I think Bangkok trying to follow the similar path, and Jakarta, again, still behind. But at least now, the governor of Jakarta already gave the kind of permit for every developer to build a connection with the subway system. So the real idea of TOD starting to grow in Jakarta. So it's very interesting to compare the three cities. And of course, as I mentioned, we are lucky to have the three distinguished speakers. And also, we are pleased to have participants joining us today from more than 7 countries across Asia and Europe, such as India, Japan, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Germany, and the UK. I would like also to acknowledge our distinguished panelists, representative from Bangkok Metropolitan Administration, Professor Tetsuo Kidokoro from 𝐷𝐼 Corporation, Mr. Yusuke Igarashi from Location Mind, Mr. Alexander Nash from Asian Development Bank, whose expertise will help guide our discussion. I'm pleased to introduce 3 distinguished practitioners who will share their experiences from Indonesia, Bangkok, and Japan. First, from Indonesia Ministry of National Development Planning, or Bappenas,
Would you spotlight Mr. Abdul?
We can introduce Deputy Minister for Infrastructure, Mr. Abdul Malik Sadad Idris, who will speak on aligning urban and metropolitan master plans with national development and infrastructure priorities. Mr. Abdul Malik used to be my director when I was Minister of Planning. I know he's one of the very capable director, among others. And I really glad now he's sitting on the more prestigious position as the Deputy Minister for Infrastructure. And following Mr. Abdul Malik, we will hear from Mr. Naomichi Muraoka, Deputy Director General at JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency. And finally, Mr. Alexander Nash from ADB on ADB's Sponge City project in Thailand. After all presentation, we will have brief discussion with the participant. So, Mr. Abdul Malik, you will be our first presenter, and the screen.
Professor Bambang, University Bambang, boss, and I learned a lot from Professor Bambang regarding urban management. I'm still learning and how to improve the condition in our metropolitan area. Okay, next, the next slide. Indonesia has 10 big metropolitan area and 71 of the urban area. After our regional economy reform, lot of sectoral law has been issued to improve fundamental diplomatic skill. Now it's part how to be solved. Just about how to harmonize between central and local government and among ministries, then how to better use the resource and then try to find a better way. And also how to align actually with a lot of stakeholder set up, and we can improve our metropolitan condition. Next slide, please. Okay. Next. Next slide. Firstly, our first about what happened in Jakarta. Jakarta, basically, we already done a full analysis for many years. So Jakarta administration actually is not Jakarta. It's the Greater Jakarta. That's strong across our forest, our land, and in total it will be 40 million of the residents. And in the last 20 years, between 21 2021, the buildable area is already very intensive. And now we manage this actually improve gradually, but our flood management transportation system, we have the one of the already MRT operate and disconnect to metropolitan area between Jakarta and Bandung, our high speed area. And we develop also our coastal of the port and the new cities and provision actually. For instance, we little bit left behind on provision of our water supply, and some part of Jakarta is enduring land subsidence, and we have a lot to do how to tackle the land subsidence by improving our water supply. And the water supply in Jakarta comes from West Java province, the Citarum River, and from now Pasokan from the western part from the 𝐸𝐥𝐚𝐬𝐿 River, and it's the interbasin transfer. So basically, the management with our biggest urban area, metro area, needs urgency to consolidate between stakeholders. Next. So, this funding is not so good. Okay, regarding, maybe I try to speak louder.
Okay.
Mhm.
We'll try to
Yeah.
manage your slides. So because there's a technical issue, so whether
Yeah, okay.
yeah, okay.
Next. In the middle of train in the agglomeration area. Next. Our my sound is clearly the organizer. Okay. We need to digital area. Okay. Yes. And the what government actually done, actually consider how important Jakarta agglomeration area is, that is almost quarter of our national GDP. And the management will need to consolidate the 3 province and 15 cities government issue in 2024 the draft law of Special Region of Jakarta. And in that law, it's mandate to prepare the master plan for the Jakarta agglomeration area. And maybe anybody will ask why another master plan? And to actually to solve the problem between administrative boundary and jurisdiction regarding to accelerate our traffic jam, flood, and waste management. Example. Next. What is the strategy on that master plan? First, actually, try to have a balance between development corridors because before everything is concentrated in the central area, the Jakarta administration, how actually we develop inter-region development corridors. For instance, the northern part, and then the central. We have 5 development corridor and try to consolidate the economic function and then to try to arrange the mobility between area. And the second strategy we try to do is to accelerate the infrastructure. Before I experienced several projects, currently, for instance, the next MRT East-West, I think ADBI will have the part of it also, connected Banten, Jakarta, and West Java province. It's really hard to, I think, between election to the election, to have a single decision among regional government, and also the decision process from the central government. So, and then about the water service also is pre-province issues. So that's why I think, and all before the master plan, each government has its own master plan. So what we're trying to do is have the consolidated plan in the inter-administration boundaries. And we try to focus what is the most important, most urgent area. There is a content of the 13 aspects. The first one is about how transportation and housing, drinking water, domestic water, waste management, flood management, water management. Also new approach. Since the GDP is become higher, so we this kind of master plan give a clear direction actually how the investment for infrastructure, investment for education, science, technology, innovation, health sector, and development of the small medium enterprise and creative economy, we have less risk to enter. And we consolidate the regional need, strategic needs on the program proposal, and then we will have consolidated the national strategic program and executive, and we solid the master plan of the agglomeration. Next. Okay, the 3 area, I think, just example. First, actually, regarding the coastal management issues. Maybe before you heard about 𝐦𝐸𝐬𝐬 project, now is our priority for this term of government. Then actually the coastline of the Jakarta Bay consists of 3 provinces. And the bottlenecking actually how to integrate, implement the land reclamation, utilization of marine sedimentation into some productive and sustainable area. And it also determine how actually how to finance the program, the responsibility among government, and what is prepared for the PPP project. The flood management issue actually is being tackled one by one. For instance, I think 14 years ago, the 3 governor and the ministry signed the agreement about the program. Transportation issue, I think it's one extremely important to integrate the TOD, housing, the network of railway, and the toll road. and actually how at the end we can increase our public transportation transport. Next, what is our effort right now? So it's quite a process to consolidate many studies and many proper plan into consolidated plan, and also to try to fill the gap and focus in more delivery strategy. That is the central idea is about how to collaborate actually in a collaboration for the OPOD, organizing urban and intermodal transportation integration, try to smart region, collaborative model of the institution, and how to actually alignment between national and regional sector planning. So this master plan actually was built in the collaboration platform, and it took almost 1.5 years actually to really to have agreement that the next presidential decree for Jakarta agglomeration. Not how to implement. Thank you very much. I wait for the question from the forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Abdul Malik, for that insightful overview of Indonesia's experience, especially for Jakarta. We will hold question for now and come back to all our presenters after the final presentation. So now let's move to our second presentation. And for this second presentation, we have Mr. Naomichi Muraoka, Deputy Director General at JICA, who will share Japan's lessons on urban master planning. Mr. Muraoka-san, screen is yours.
Well, thank you very much for your introduction, Professor Bambang Brodjonegoro. Can you hear me? It's okay? Okay, thank you so much. I'd like to share Japanese lessons on urban master plan. My presentation consists of 5 parts. First is the reasons why Japan's experience in master plan is worth sharing. Second, the evolution of a legal framework in Japan as a background information. And third, Japan's strengths. Fourth, Japan's challenges we are facing now. And then fifth, application of Japanese experiences to countries in Southeast Asia. Next slide, please. So first, why it is worth sharing Japanese experiences. I think cities in Japan and Southeast Asia have many experiences and challenges in common. It can be population increase as a country in a very short period of time and super rapid urbanizations in cities, which cannot be found in the development history of cities in Western countries in general. So we therefore think we can provide practical inputs and advices based on our preceding experiences of overcoming urban issues and lessons learned from our development as a references for cities in Southeast Asia. Next, please. So in this slide, let me explain about the evolution of the legal framework of the city planning in Japan as a background information. First, at the national level, the first city planning law was established in 1919 that introduced zoning district in Japan. In 1968, new city planning law was established, by which we introduced the urbanization area for promoting urbanizations and urbanization control area for development restriction in order to slow down the sprawl. Finally, city planning law was amended in 1992, by which a master plan was introduced. So we have relatively new history of master plan on a legal basis. However, master plan type planning has been already implemented even before the legislation. If we look at city or regional level, for example, Capital Region Development Act in 1958 and the long-term vision with 6 mega projects in Yokohama City, you can see in this slide, which has been started in 1965, are such practices. Next slide, please. So now I talk about Japan's strength, I think. I would say there are two strengths. First, the railway system has been developed well before motorization started in full scale. The graph below left shows the number of vehicles per 1,000 people in Japan, Thailand, and Indonesia, respectively. The first metro in Japan in Tokyo became operational in 1927. At that time, the number of vehicles per 1,000 people was far smaller than 100. On the contrary, Bangkok's first urban train services, SkyTrain, became operational in 1999. The number of vehicles per 1,000 people at that time was around 150. In the case of Jakarta, first metro became operational in 2019. The number of vehicles per 1,000 people were around 280. In the case of Japan, the expansion of railway and the separation of passengers, railway capacity, and the separation of passengers and freight services that you can see in the pictures on this slide have been implemented between 1965 and 1980s, largely by the third long-term plan of National Railway by National Railway of Japan to cope with rapid urbanizations and motorizations. Next slide, please. So second strength is that legal framework, policy implementations, and the financial scheme shared the same vision to cope with increasing urban populations, and therefore land use and transport were implemented in an integrated manner. Taking Tokyo's case as an example, at national level, we had a vision in Capital Region Development Plan, legal framework, and financial support, as you can see in this slide. From railway sector viewpoint, National Railway made long-term investment plan, considering the increasing populations and growing urbanizations, and therefore referring to the Capital Region Development Plan. The long-term investment plan made investment into railway expansion and improvement with the financial support and incentives from the regional and national government. At local level, we had city planning at municipality level, where land use were planned considering the people's convenience for accessing to railway services. The two types of land use as urbanization area for urbanizations and urbanization control area for development restriction functioned to slow down the sprawl. Next slide, please. This slide shares more concrete example. TOD development along Tsukuba Express Railway, which operates in the northeast part of Tokyo metropolitan area, was implemented, backed by special law. The Act on Special Measures concerning comprehensive advance of housing development and railway construction in metropolitan area assigned specific role for national government, municipalities, railway operators, urban renaissance agency, UR, developers, etc., to secure integrated development of land use and railway by law, to accelerate and ensure the land acquisition for railway infrastructure and facilities, and also TOD, land readjustment was extensively applied and land value capture was introduced to collect the investment cost for TOD development. You can see by the picture on your right, the above is the 2005 when the train started operation, and the below is 2020. You can see the advancement of TOD along the stations and the railways. So please, next slide. Now I'd like to talk about challenges and lessons from Japan. We are now facing declining birth rate and aging population, therefore decreasing population in total. Blue solid line in this graph shows the population trend of Japan, while blue dashed line shows percentage of population aged more than 25 years old of Japan. Orange line shows that Thailand is going similar trend with Japan, while green line shows that Indonesia population increase continues and little aging trend. Next slide, please. So when we have super aging society and population decrease, we will have the following problems. First, maintaining public services, commercial services, and such services as education and healthcare become difficult as they lose customers, users, and revenue to cover their operational cost. In order to mitigate such situation, Japan is trying to make cities compact, maintaining population in the city, so that such urban function can remain operational financially. City planning in Japan tends to estimate population decrease nowadays. New law introduced the way of planning city in a shrinking manner by defining area for urban function introduction and area where development is discouraged, but not prohibited. By doing so, we are trying to guide our city compact. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the difficulty of maintaining infrastructure under the population decreasing society. Toyama City in Japan has many old bridges. The cost of maintaining bridges is expected to increase and to go beyond its financial capacity in future. So Toyama City therefore plans to classify bridges into 4 categories, considering its importance, usage, and the conditions. Some bridges will be even removed if classified into the lowest classes. Making city compact means physical shrinking by such pain of removing infrastructure. Next slide, please. Another challenge is to maintain good health of elderly people. Mitsuke City in Niigata Prefecture in Japan, city with less than 40,000 population, shares good example to overcome this challenge. Pilot project done by Mitsuke City revealed that people who do sports regularly had spent less medical expenses, nearly 100,000 yen less compared to those who don't do sports per year. With these findings, Mitsuke City set its vision as creating healthy, happy for well-being, and upgraded sidewalk, beautify the townscapes, utilized vacant stores to attract new economic activities, and started providing sports class and community bus services in order to improve walkable people's health and to revitalize the city's economy. Next slide, please. So finally, application of Japanese experience to countries in Southeast Asia. JICA prioritized master plan as we think it will define your city's fate in future. In JICA cooperation, we wish to share with you our experiences and lessons learned so that you don't make similar mistakes that we have made in the past. JICA is conducting research and development in order to establish the master plan by which we can quantify the global house gas emission reduction by implementing master plan. Smart cities are also the area we are paying our attention to because not only it enhances energy efficiency, the usage of infrastructure and the services, but also citizen participation and decision-making by using real-time data. So smart city can drastically transform the way of implementing master plan in future. Next slide, please. So thank you very much for your attention. So please feel free to contact me via email if you have any inquiry. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Muraoka-san. And I know very well JICA has been very active in supporting the development of master plan of many urban area across Asia. And I know very well the one that has been developed for Jakarta. And Japan's decades of experience integrating land use and transport is really a powerful reference for the entire region. So we will save our questions and discussion after the final presentation. Now let's hear from the Thai case, from Mr. Alexander Nash from the ADB, who will share insight on ADB Sponge City project in Thailand. So Mr. Nash, screen is yours.
Thank you, Professor Bambang. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, very well.
Great, okay. I will, if you want, Vika, do you want me to try sharing from my screen or if you want, you can present it?
Yeah, we can help you to manage the slides.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, all right, great. All right, I'll take you through it. Yeah, so as Professor Bambang said, the other two presentations are focused very much on master planning in general and particularly transport and transport-oriented development, which is a very important component of developing cities. I work in our water and urban division, and if you like, ADB's urban work could be split between our urban teams and also our transport teams and energy teams. And so my presentation will focus mostly on the water and urban division work, which we've been doing mostly in Thailand, but I'll give a few other examples. What I wanted to talk about was the sponge city concept, which comes from China, as many of you will know, and ADB has been supporting in China. And recently there has been interest in other developing member countries of ADB to look into how this model might help them cope with the increasing pressures which water is causing in cities, particularly in Southeast Asia. Go to the next slide. So yeah, today I'll talk quickly about what sponge city principles are for those who don't know. For those who know, please bear with me, and some examples from our work. And then some potential applications that we're looking at into Thailand. And I'll also touch a little bit on the broader concepts that we've been talking about, because this is a webinar about master planning and how our sponge city work would fit in with master planning and the sorts of activities that we typically carry out. Next slide. Okay, so ADB, I think many people know ADB, the water and urban division. These are the subjects which we deal with in my team. So water resilience, a lot of wastewater and sanitation work. We also cover solid waste management and flood risk management, which is increasingly important for many of the cities in our region. Tourism, and we do urban roads and transport on some of our projects. The subjects like MRT and metros would typically lie within our transport division because they're very big investments and they rely on the speciality of the transport team. But my team, we do often get involved in small roads and urban roads. Next slide. Okay, so what do sponge cities rely on? There's a lot of jargon around this, so you'll hear all these different terms, and I'll come to them in a slide. And they all more or less refer to the same thing, nature-based solutions, sponge cities, water-sensitive urban design, natural infrastructure, I sometimes call it. What it's about is it's about trying to bring natural spaces back into the city area where as we build cities, typically we try to if you like, get away from nature or at least manage it and control it. And natural infrastructure or water-sensitive urban design seeks to abandon some of our ability to control the way water works through infrastructure like concrete and pipes, and to bring back in natural processes, because we recognize that although they are perhaps less predictable, they are more resilient and can be much more cost effective and can offer a lot of water services generally in terms of managing water flows, cleaning water, but also lots of other services. For example, creating transport corridors, reducing heat, improving air quality. And as all of us know, all of us who live in cities, they're actually very nice to live next to. And so they provide a lot of other services, green space for urban amenities, which improve health and other outcomes. They do improve land values, and so there's an element of land value capture which can be associated with green spaces. Next slide, please. Here's some examples of how we have been working on using natural infrastructure or water-sensitive urban design to convey water out of cities. As you know, with climate change, with the changing climate, water, the hydrological cycle is sort of speeding up, and so the variability of our rainfall is increasing, meaning we're faced with more droughts, but also more severe storms. And we have to convey more water out of our urban areas. And so rather than building bigger and bigger concrete pipes and drains, many cities are now taking an approach where we're looking at how we can use natural waterways to do that. And so these are some examples of treatment techniques that we use on those waterways and have been implementing on our projects. Next slide. This is an example of one of the projects in 𝐦𝐻, and I don't know if any of you are interested enough. We have a little video on this. So this, you can see the planning concept that we worked with urban planners and landscape architects to come up with. And this was actually built, if you go to ADB and you Google 𝐻𝐻 Lap River, water urban design, you should find a video on it. It looked like when we finished it. It was a very long process. And it involved quite a lot of work in convincing the government, engineers, regulatory authorities to move away from the typical concrete infrastructure which they use and to adopt some of these natural types of infrastructure where the performance was, they were a little bit worried about how these things would perform under flood. Next slide, please. Another example from Vietnam's and coastal protection. So many of our cities are down on the coast. And interestingly, throughout history, we didn't actually live right on the coast itself. Our cities tended to be set back a little bit because the coastal area, there wasn't really any interest in living beside the sea itself unless you were a fisherman. More likely you wanted to live inland, closer to rice fields and markets and so on. But now, as cities have expanded, we do move right down to the coastline itself, and coastlines move. They naturally move around. They're dynamic places. The sea and the wind moves the coastline around. And that's fine if nobody lives there. But once we live there, of course, it becomes inconvenient when houses start falling into the sea. And so we're looking at how we can actually protect coastlines where the cities have come right up to the coastline without necessarily using concrete. What we found is that use of concrete to stabilize shorelines tends to move problems rather than solve them. And so here you can see a picture of a study of sediment flow, which we carried out in Phan Thiet in southern Vietnam. And we have also done another one in Hue, where you concrete the coastline to prevent it moving, we see that it actually makes problems worse further down the coastline, and you can see serious erosion happening. And so there's a growing awareness that actually we should be using sediment and working with natural flows and perhaps carrying out our own sediment flows through sand nourishment to protect cities. Next slide. Okay, to move on to Thailand, because that was the advertised subject of the speech. Sponge cities. I said before, I mentioned some of the other jargon terms used for this, just so that we all know what we're talking about. These are all the things that it's called: sustainable urban water management, integrated, low impact, water sensitive or water sensitive urban design, and sustainable urban drainage system in the UK, 𝐦𝐸𝐳. And Singapore has a particular program they call ABC, Active, Beautiful, Clean Waters, which is a very successful and sort of flagship program. And if any of you live in Singapore or go through there, I really encourage you to go and have a look up the ABC Waters program and go and look at some of the sites that they've built. For example, Bishan Park and other parks and buildings such as the Admiralty Building, and have a look at how Singapore has really mainstreamed nature-based solutions across their whole city. Next slide, please. Sorry, the slide was there twice. I go to the next slide. Okay, so in Thailand, with with support from consultants around the region and also our colleagues in China, my colleague Stefan, we have put together, we have looked at developing a sponge city program for the country focused on 5 cities. It looks at what green infrastructure we could do, what blue infrastructure and what grey infrastructure exists, and how we can incorporate these different types of infrastructure. Next slide. These are the 5 cities. I'll take you through this fairly quickly. Khon Kaen is a city up in the plateau of Thailand, which is sort of on a flat area, but is subject to river flooding. Next slide. Phitsanulok, also up on there, not quite on the plateau, but it's a floodplain city in the Chao Phraya River Basin. Next slide. Bangkok, many of you will know, and Professor Bambang mentioned it, and we'll have another talk on Bangkok. So Bangkok, you can see its situation is very low-lying, it's very flat, and it's subject to tidal forces coming in from the Gulf of Thailand, and of course, therefore, it's subject to the risk of sea level rise. Many of you might remember in 2011 the devastating floods which Bangkok experienced, which closed many businesses for months at a time. Next slide. Ayutthaya is the ancient capital of Thailand, which is just to the north of Bangkok and suffers the same sorts of river-based flooding problems. Next slide. Okay, we might have missed Surat Thani, but anyway, here it shows all of the 5 cities. The last one I need to mention was Surat Thani, which is a city down near Koh Samui for those who've been to Thailand tourism, but is a sort of estuary city with a mountain range behind it and therefore subject to sudden flooding. Okay, next slide. A little bit of information on climate change to show the scale of the challenge. This is for Thailand, but it'll be applicable to many cities in Southeast Asia. You can see there's an average increase in temperature from 1901 to 2023. Next slide. But when we're planning for cities, particularly urban, more important, and really shows how averages don't tell the story. Averages are sort of increasing and people can be a bit relaxed about averages. What we're mostly worried about is this, which is the variability, which is increasing. And so you can see there's drier and drier years and there's wetter and wetter years. And this, if you're an engineer like me, this makes planning much more difficult, and it really raises the cost of infrastructure because we want our infrastructure to be able to deal with peaks. Next slide, please. Here's some temperature projections, which, similar to the previous slide on temperature, they don't show the more disturbing story, which is the variability in rainfall and droughts, which will accompany this. But even this should be a source of concern for us, because all of us know what it's like to be outside in a humid city when it's 28 or 30 degrees, and this is going to get worse. So as we are planning our urban development general, we need to increasingly be thinking about heat as a matter of life and death. Next slide. Okay, so here's some examples of how sponge cities can be used to improve existing grey systems. So typically when we're coming into a city like Bangkok or Surat Thani or any other city, infrastructure already exists. We have fairly limited space in which we can work. So we can't sort of start raising whole city blocks to put in fields or for retention basins. We need to work with what we've got. And this slide sort of shows how through the application of some green infrastructure, we can get a better level of service from the grey infrastructure that we already have. Next slide. There's a comment which says there's a huge echo. I can't hear any echo, so I'm hoping that we might be able to resolve that. I'll keep talking. Hopefully somebody could look into the echo problem if there is one.
There's no problem. Please
These
go
are some
ahead.
of the performance indicators we use to look at how a sponge city might work. We can quantify the reduction in flood risk, the reduction in stormwater management, the reuse of stormwater. We can quantify the amount of groundwater we recharge. We can quantify the heat reduction, pollution reduction, improvements in biodiversity, and also community well-being, which is also qualitative, of course. Next slide. Okay, so I'll bring you through to an example of Surat Thani just very quickly to talk about how this fits in with urban planning, which is the subject of the webinar. Because I'm an engineer, we very much start with modeling. There's different types of modeling here. This shows a flood model for rainwater, but it's not just about modeling water. In a city, when planning for its development, my view is we should be modeling power consumption, water consumption, solid waste generation, but also transport. How do people move around the city? And another thing that we can model is, how close people are to amenities. And all of this, I would say, the possibilities of modeling and the insights that it gives us have dramatically opened up in the age of big data. Before, these things might have been fairly theoretical, but now they are very empirical. We can base them on huge amounts of data collected by people like Google, Apple, Facebook, showing us where people are at any moment in time. And this can really, really improve the quality of our planning and designing of infrastructure. We can design a 15-minute city now, genuinely do it, because we know where people are and we know where they go and we know where everything is. And so the availability of big data, plus the increases in computing power, technologies like AI, can really help us develop much more efficient cities than we could in the past. Next slide. So this comes back to a subject which might be dear to many people's hearts in this webinar, which is land use planning. Now, I am not a planner by trade. I'm an engineer, but of course, I do see the importance of planning. When talking about planning, I'd always like you to keep in mind two things. The first thing is a plan without a plan to enforce it is not a plan. It's just a sort of an embarrassing failure. So I always think about, it's great that we have a plan. How do we enforce it? How is anybody going to stick to this? You have to remember that in all cities all over the world, there is enormous pressure on land use and also there's enormous money to be made in not respecting land use plans. This pressure is always brought to bear on governments in every country that I've ever lived in or worked in. And so when we're planning a land use plan, we have to remember what's at stake, what's everybody's incentives, and how can we make sure that these sorts of public goods are respected. The other thing I would say for land use planning is we should integrate these. These plans should use the results from the model when planning where we put land and different types of development. And the last thing I would say is, while land use plans and master plans are very useful and can provide a legal foundation and a sort of a framework for developing a city, they need a capital investment program to go with them. Otherwise, they just sort of remain these expressions of sort of vision or general desire. So capital investment programs need to be tied into these land use master plans for public infrastructure. And long-term investment plans give certainty over the sorts of infrastructure that we build, and it also gives certainty to private developers that the infrastructure will follow. Next slide. Here's some examples of the proposals we've come up for Surat Thani. We'll go quickly now. Next slide. And some examples of the intervention. So using these techniques of modeling and planning, you can see how a sponge city might be developed in Surat Thani with some proposed interventions, which we think would improve flooding and improve the quality of life in the city. Next slide. Okay, finally, I'll end. I have to wrap up, but I wanted to point you towards that the last type of intervention we do is we do policy support. And so in the case of Thailand, we've prepared some national guidelines in English and in Thai, and we've prepared similar guidelines in Vietnam and other countries to help cities move in this direction. And that is the end of my presentation. I'm sorry if I went over time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nash. The smart city approach is really a fascinating model for climate resilient urban planning. Now we have heard all the three excellent presentations of Indonesia, Thailand, and Japan. So let me now open the floor for Q&A. And I think Vika already mentioned that everyone who likes to pose a question, please write your question on the chat. So while waiting for the question from the audience, let me, as a kind of moderator, to ask at least a question for each of the speakers. So I would like to start with Malik. Greater Jakarta metropolitan area spans multiple jurisdictions. So my question is, what do you think will be the best way to do multi-level coordination related to the urban development master plan? And what kind of financing strategies that you think will be applicable to that kind of approach? For Mr. Alexander Nash, Jakarta, Bangkok, and Jakarta, Bangkok, and Manila are considered the Southeast Asian metropolitan that could be in danger of the coastal flood. And each city trying to find a solution, to prevent the city from getting the big coastal flood. Jakarta, for example, is thinking about like giant seawall. So with your own city innovation, do you think this can be considered as a way, at least for Bangkok, to prevent the city from the possibility of getting a big coastal flood in the near future? Last but not least, for Muraoka-san, if you are assigned by JICA headquarters to disseminate the message about urban planning in majority of metropolitan cities in Asia, do you think my following statement will be also in your mind? Meaning that the best way to do the urban master plan is to focus on public transportation system and TOD, and the rest should adjust to both public transportation system and the TOD. So those are my 3 questions for each of presenters. So Vika, if you can show me the question from the audience, maybe in the chat. Yeah, let me try.
Thank you very much, Prof. Bambang. I try to answer what is government trying to do, then establish. First, to consolidate the scares of the government to form the agglomeration board and consolidate the plan. And also to consolidate our service of the state-owned companies and also the municipal companies. For instance, in the railway sector, we have the PT KAI and also Jakarta PT MRT and all the PDAM, our water supply company, and waste management company, how it can consolidate to become a common common institution. And the question how to finance, actually, Jakarta central government, the Jakarta itself has quite enough fiscal capacity and good PPP approach. So the Jakarta, we try to encourage them to establish a lot of PPP and investment and do the blended financing with the Jakarta government. However, for West Java and Banten, we know that they not yet achieve a lot of project that they can do the enough financial cost recovery. So central government help the acceleration to bring the same standard through the West for the West Java and Banten government, and to connect it with the infrastructure or the built area in the Jakarta era. So then the financial viability will become better. And for instance, in our MRT East-West project, we calculate as the one services and then the regional water supply also and our waste management. Then the central Jakarta government will help accelerate bring together the development in West Java and the Banten. And personally, I try my department now to improve also the blended financing. For instance, ADB, the finance for the funding and finance, for the finance of the project, how to actually to help the consortium between donors and the financial arm of the public lending arm to build a PPP project, and also to improve the tariff policy actually for instance in our waste management project, the waste to energy project, we introduced a quite interesting tariff. Then the investment right now from Danantara to help the waste to energy project could continue. And to improve also how actually the transportation sector, for instance, government try to simplify the public service obligation, and then to introduce the buy the service project. So the investor will start to line up and calculate their participation. Thank you very much.
So yeah, thank you, Dr. Malik. Can you hear my earlier question, Mr. Nash?
Yeah, but it's not clear, but I understand your question. I hopefully.
Yeah, Mr. Nash.
Professor Bambang, no, I didn't catch all of the question. The audio did break up quite a lot, but somebody might be able to type the question.
Yeah, let me rephrase the question. So can you hear me clearly now?
Not really.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's my end or if it's everybody.
Put the camera off. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
Yes,
Yeah, great.
better.
Okay. So okay.
Thank you.
So to Mr. Nash, my question is: Jakarta, Bangkok, and Manila are considered the Southeast Asia metropolitan area that will be vulnerable to the coastal flood. So each of the city trying to protect itself. Jakarta trying to build giant seawall, for example. So I like to know whether your Spawn City innovation will be kind of Bangkok's protection against the potential coastal flood coming from the Gulf.
Okay, now the internet problem might be at my end. I think I caught most of that question though. Let me turn my video off. We'll see if that improves it. So coastal protection, yes, I realize Jakarta is looking into a seawall. Bangkok, I think, also is considering a sea dike, how they might protect themselves. I would say that although these problems do appear fairly frightening when you're a city of 20 million people faced with sea level rises much more rapid than have been experienced historically, I try to take heart from other cities, such as the Dutch cities and perhaps to some extent London, rising sea levels or subsiding cities over a long period of time by protecting their through the use of seawalls and dikes. Long-term investment, planning profile, and say, okay, if we're not going to relocate the city and we're going to stay here, we need to be planning for a 100-year time frame and start to build the infrastructure in place. But there's no reason why a city can't. I think the Dutch show us no low-lying coastal area, provided we're willing to make the. I hope that answered the question. But I love the comment. I mean, for example, Hue, we look at Hue is also a little bit subject and at risk of that in Vietnam. Looking at sand nourishment. And I think the Dutch also make use of this, the use of sand and natural infrastructure to build up natural defenses. Those solutions require a commitment to continually doing it because the sand will move and it will erode, and that's okay. That's what it's supposed to do. It's not supposed to stay there forever. And we just say this is an operating cost of keeping our city safe. And that's another proposal which has much less impact on the environment.
Okay, thank you, Nash. So maybe Dr. Staram,
Yeah,
you can continue the
Dean
session.
Bambang has a connection issue. He's right now traveling, and so allow me to take over. There was a question. In fact, there were several questions in the Q&A panel. I would like to request Muraoka-san if you are able to address some of them. I'm trying to paraphrase the questions. I hope you can hear me. One question is about the experience of Japan. How does the city master plan in Japan incorporate this? How do you incorporate the balancing the development with heritage? So how do you get the cultural identity and historical side and also show the modernization? A related question is, another one is, how in Japan it's integrating land use and transport. What are the first steps for Southeast Asian countries where governance is kind of fragmented? There is no, that's then third part, which I'm giving to all of you so that you can kind of give a comprehensive response, is about financing. Alex also spoke about nature-based solutions, but how many city governments just don't have the budget to do the routine things. So how do they prioritize? Where do they get the money from, and how are they able to justify financing these which are kind of forward-looking? So maybe if you can, from Japan's experience, Muraoka-san, if you can kind of share some ideas or insights on these 3 points. I think Dean Bambang has joined, but I'll give it to Muraoka-san, then Dean Bambang can take over. Go ahead, Muraoka-san.
Okay, thank you very much. I try to be very concise. For the first questions, regarding the culture preservations at the level of master plan, of course, we put a great emphasis on preserving culture as an engine of cities development. At the level of master plan, I think what we discuss is rather limited. Maybe as a plan, we will assign those areas or assets as a, for the preservation for areas or, asset. But for detailed arrangement, that will be discussed outside of the master plan. For example, we have some, schemes that support people to preserve the, traditional architecture or, buildings or, townscapes. We have different schemes, but the areas can be roughly assigned in the level of master plan. That's one thing I want to respond to you. And the second, in the case of Asian countries, where to start with under the circumstances where the governance is not functioning well and interconnected each others. Yes, that's what we are facing as a ODA implementing agency of Japanese government. One of the things is that we would like to have some coordination functions in some players. For example, in the case of Jakarta, MRTJ can be the master developer for TOD. By laws, and also we have urban renaissance agency in Japan, such kind of public entity that facilitate the coordinations in the long-term viewpoint can make a different make changes in a different manner. And also, incentive mechanism should be carefully considered. Each stakeholders involved in TOD, for example, have different incentives, and we should be very careful about the incentives, and then design those those incentives, and study the interaction between those stakeholders, how this action can make a different change to another, stakeholders' actions or something like that. That's, I think that I'm thinking that that kind of work can, function in Asian cities as well. As for the finance, I couldn't catch I think I couldn't understand well, but yeah. at this moment.
Well, I can come back to you on that later. Thank you very much. Now, with the permission of all the speakers and participants, we are trying to catch up on our timetable. So, Alex and Abdul, please stay online. We are moving to the mini roundtable, and we have Mr. 𝐦𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 from Location Mind who has joined us. This is a startup and a company focusing on spatial data. So I would like to ask him, in the context of the three nice presentations that we have had here, what's the role of this, technology? We use it every day, spatial technology, real-time mobile phone data, how we can use that for urban planning, and how that can be helpful for master planning and also monitoring the success of the implementation of the plan. So 𝐦𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬, over to you for a quick response, and then I'll come back to the panelists for the mini roundtable discussion.
Yes, thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'm Yusuke Igarashi from Location Mind. And to answer to that question in concise manner, we believe that the location data can provide important information about the socioeconomic activity of the society. In other words, it can be a good index of how the people are behaving in that society. So we have, sorry about this. Yeah, thank you very much for showing this slide. So yes, we are the Location Mind, and we are dealing with almost 150 big data in 150 countries. And yes, so basically we try to kind of drive by analyzing the location data and trajectory of each mobile device. We not only try to reveal where the people are or how the people are moving, we also try to translate that location-based information into the traffic-related information or social activity-related information. For example, if you look closely to the GPS trajectory, you can reveal the information like how many people are using private vehicles rather than railways when moving from this city to another city. Or you can, for example, understand how many people are visiting hospitals on weekdays or weekends, and what are the demographic profile of those who are visiting hospitals. And that kind of information related to traffic's social activities can be derived from that location data. And that is what we are providing to our customers to help their decision makings. So if this makes sense, this is a short answer from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will come back to you. Now, let me swing back to our panelists. Let me first invite Abdul. I hope your audio is now okay. There are many questions in the Q&A panel. I'm going to summarize some of them so that you can respond to them. This one is regarding the Jakarta's development corridors, how the specific boundaries were determined, and are they based on some economic clusters? Are they designed to shift economic activity towards previously underdeveloped areas? So can you talk about that a little bit? And there is also a question on the TOD, the Jakarta Metropolitan Area and the LRT, MRT. How are they created so that there will be no slum settlement around the TOD area? Can you address these two questions? I know they are a bit sensitive.
It's okay. First, the question about. I like from the last question, how to the TOD, TOD and how to reduce the slum. I think first the TOD actually try to build, because now we have the network of the toll road already and the railway. The commuter line of Jabodetabek that bring 1 million people every day, and LRT Jabodetabek. So we improve the development. I think consolidate each station from the station into 800 areas as the mixed use development, because before it's just considered as the one type of area. The mixed-use development, first we improve the interconnectivity between our railway and bus services, and then the influence of the TOD become higher, and the central government help the local government to bring, I think the current, for instance, we have the project in the Block M area, because the landowner actually is already, it's a brownfield project, yeah. It's not a greenfield project. So the agreement between the landholder is important, how the sharing benefit to be implemented, yeah. And then some asset is consolidated, and now actually we just launching the project to our new public housing mixed use with the development, because we learned a lot from the first TOD when we just built the housing near the station of the LRT. It was empty. It was empty because we think everybody like to live very near with the station, but actually the sales is not was good. Then we improved that. Then we introduced the mixed type development. The first question about the corridor. Then we have the TOD. Actually, the function is to bring more mixed use development spread out from the central Jakarta, because now the commuting pattern from the suburb to the central Jakarta is very intense, even from Bandung also. So we spread out the services. For instance, the services of the health, the services of education, and how to arrange this is the center of the finance, this is the center of the production, the center of leisure. Then the mobility is in the near future need not to be, I think, very far, because we introduced the mixed type development. For instance, the housing before the one that is too much the theme is about the housing, we improve the local service. And we improve the mobility, actually the network of the railway, we improve our headway to bring more people to the train, to the bus. Then each day they can go among the zone. So so then in one day they have more productivity. Thank you.
Okay, let me now swing back to Alex. You had spoken nicely about the sponge cities. I'm sorry we didn't allocate enough time for you to explain it. One aspect that maybe you could spend some time on is the institutional arrangement and governance arrangements, because these plans are, they may be across several political terms or terms of government officers. How the master plan implementation is vulnerable, or how important are the institutional arrangement, and what examples you have from your experience and also as part of ADB, how to handhold this institutional continuity. Any ideas you can share on that?
Thanks. Yeah, no worries on the time. That was fine. Institutional arrangements for water. I think our Thai colleagues, you probably know, our colleague 𝐦𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐞𝐫, famous landscape architect. She has a great presentation. I want to give her credit for it, where she shows how many institutions a drop of water flows through in Thailand. I think it's 50, but that would not be unique to Thailand. I would say that is fairly normal, that water flows through our institutions because we don't organize our governments around water. We organize our governments around other things, usually some sort of geography, and perhaps some levels of organization. So no matter what, water will require institutional coordination. The more institutions or levels of government who have to coordinate together, the harder it gets. That's just true everywhere. And I think we just have to face that as a reality. I would say some countries do make it easier on themselves by convening specific bodies which bring together the institutions around the subject of water. For example, basin authorities. Basin authorities can be created in different countries where you can give them some legal powers and you can bring together the actors and they have to agree how water will be managed within a basin. Sometimes they're created without powers and they don't really work. Other times they're given real teeth. I'd say that's a fairly useful response where, for example, you have flooding in a city which is Some of the flooding can be dealt with locally through sponge city type infrastructure, but some of it, river-driven stuff, can't. And if river-driven flooding is being caused because another part of the city is raising land, which is pushing the water, or they're deforesting upstream, then you probably need a basin management authority or something with real teeth around development approval. But I'll just, because I like being a devil's advocate, the more institutional levels of approval you have in development, the less development happens, right? It becomes slower and slower. So I can understand why. All I would say is that whenever a city is seeking to deal with water, everybody in the city knows where they don't want the water. The question I always ask our clients is, okay, where do you want the water? That's the answer which needs to be given. Where will we put the water? And any development which is raising land levels or reducing infiltration needs to be able to answer that question. In Singapore, they have regulations around the amount of infiltration space you need to create in green space. It's largely as a green space replacement regulation, but the effect also has one of water retention. So you can make development as a regulation, a constraint and approval requirement, and be able to absorb a certain amount of development. And sponge cities do that. They seek to limit runoff as part of your development approval.
Thank you. That really kind of brings us to the end of the first mini roundtable, which was on institutions, financing, and plan updating. And I'd like to thank all the speakers for joining this, and also the panelists. Dean Bambang is still with us. Let's move on to the second roundtable. This one is kind of diving deep into integrated land use and transport for inclusive adaptive cities. I'm delighted to welcome the first panelist, Professor Kidokuro, who is now a senior consultant at Almec Corporation. The question for him to address would be on how the land use transport integration can move beyond just moving people. And from your consulting experiences, what is the 3 arenas model you have spoken about? Can you share some insights with the group here, Professor Kidokuro?
Okay, thank you very much. I have slides to share. Bika, could you please show us?
Yes, Sensei. We are sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much again for your invitation. I would like to begin my talk with a fundamental question. In many cities, planning clearly exists, yet transformational changes of cities so often do not follow. The key question, therefore, is why planning so often fails to translate into real change. To answer this question, I will introduce a re-architecture of planning designed to address this gap. Next slide, please. Planning should be redefined as co-evolutionary and transformative process. Conventionally, planning and implementation process flow top-down, from political leadership to planning agencies and sectoral departments, treating planning largely as an allocation exercise. While administratively clear, this approach limits cross-sector coordination, weakens stakeholder engagement, and often disconnects plans from project development and implementation realities. In my view, this structural limitation is a key reason why many well-intended plans fail to translate into effective action. Planning architecture should be redefined from a top-down and allocative model to a co-evolutionary and transformative 3 arenas model, which I call it, one that is data-driven, yet fundamentally human-centered and learning-enabled. Next slide, please.
Please go to the next slide, Vika.
Please. Okay. The co-evolutionary design is a key mechanism of the 3 arenas model, in which planning and institutions co-evolve through collaboration and co-learning. As shown in the left figure, As local initiatives advance and institutions mature, urban governance progresses from master plan formulation through collaborative coordination to institutionalized coordination. In parallel, as illustrated in the right figure, the master plan evolves, becoming more operational and more transformative. In essence, master plan and urban governance evolve together. Master plan must drive this evolution. Next slide, please. In practice, strategic project packaging drives a self-reinforcing cycle of projects, investments, and institutions. As illustrated, a universe of candidate projects from sectoral cluster plans is evaluated and strategically bundled, guided by strategic goals. The investment facilitation scenario frames this bundling as an evolutionary process from public investment as an initial stage to PPPs and ultimately to private investment. An integrated multi-sector pre-feasibility study serves as the mechanism to examine not only technical and financial viability, but also institutional viability. In turn, this process drives organizational and institutional restructuring. Next slide, please. One of the key issues in integrating land use and transport is transit-oriented development, or TOD. Viewed through the three arenas model, TOD in many emerging cities stands at a critical juncture. At this juncture, TOD must shift from a station-led to a corridor-led approach to address broader urban transformation. Station-led TOD focuses on individual stations and immediate areas and is often property-driven. Therefore, development tends to concentrate in selected station areas, leaving the corridor fragmented and largely car-oriented, unfortunately. In contrast, corridor-led TOD treats the corridor as the primary development scale. To realize this, an evolutionary approach provides a practical pathway, starting from station area alliances as entry points and gradually expanding into corridor-wide cooperation, enabling transit-oriented, integrated land use and transport. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. The last slide. Advancing corridor-led TOD requires strengthened capacity for institutional coordination. At present, gaps remain in many cities. To address these gaps, it is essential to implement a set of mutually reinforcing activities, as illustrated in the figure, including a corridor strategic development framework or corridor master plan, collaborative platforms, living labs, where citizens and the public bodies, researchers, and the private sector work together in private pilot projects, shared data, and a knowledge hub, reflecting the smart urban management approach at the forefront of global smart city practice. Finally, I would like to conclude with a key message. The three arenas model reframes planning as a transformative process. Capacity development through a smart urban management approach is key to realizing it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Kitokuro. I'm going to ask you to stay because there may be a lot of questions. Already I see some questions in the chat Q&A. You can respond to some of them. Let me now welcome Professor 𝐻𝐚𝐬𝐿 from Thailand. We already had detailed discussion on the sponge city in Thailand. Maybe you could talk about the urban plans, how they adapt to emerging climate pressures, Professor 𝐻𝐚𝐬𝐿, particularly the technology shifts, the demographic changes. Could you share your views? Then we will have discussions.
Thank you. Thank you for invitation and konnichiwa, Kiro-sensei. Hi. 𝐻𝐚𝐬𝐿 Serispoon from Urban Design and Development Center, Center of Excellence on Urban Strategy, Chulalongkorn University. So we work at the intersection of the data, design, and governance, and we always have the question about implementation, like why does the master plan not reach the street? We can discuss about the sponge city later. So first, I would like to address maybe just to support what 𝐸𝐿𝐴 just present about the TOD. So Bangkok today operate more than 200 kilometers of urban rail. We are one of the most extensive rapid transit network in Southeast Asia, and yet from our food walk assessment across the transit corridor, 75% of the street within the walking distance of those stations are not yet walkable by any meaningful quality standard, not only in terms of the physical presence, but in terms of also safety, shaded continuity, and also human scale experience. On the data compound, you can see our green space, maybe it can connect to the sponge city. Our green space per capita only 7.6 square meters. This is the data from BMA, but if we calculate up to the World Health Organization plus a daytime population, the number reduced to 2.3 square meter per capita, and also the average distance to the closest are only up to 4.5 kilometer or 60 minutes walk. So it's quite a challenge now. And if we discuss about the urban heat, this is this year is going to up to the temperature feel like up to 60 degrees by the forecast. Raise in the inner city area. The temperature in the city area is over 2 degrees Celsius above the surrounding. So which is directly suppress the pedestrian activity regardless what the master plan says. So the master plan gap is not only spatial, it's structural that we would like to emphasize. This is failure of the governance architecture, not only the urban design imagination. Next slide, please. So over 12 years of work across 35 cities in Thailand, we have identified 3 conditions that consistently determine whether the master plan reach the city or remain at the planning document. The first is data before design. Master plan in our region frequently draw before the street level diagnosis is completed. Our food walks index that I'm going to show you the next slide, which integrate the mobility data and urban heat mapping, identifies precisely where the land transport integration fail at the human scale before a single investment is committed. Bangkok Inner City Master Plan for Bangkok 250 that UDC received the commission from the BMA was structured entirely around this diagnosis sequences. Data first, spatial, proposal second. And the second is a neutral platform like UDC and also other like a non-profit organization, not with top-down mandate. As you know, implementation continuity across the budget cycle and critically across election cycles, very important in Thai context, depends heavily on the independent institution that holds the long-term vision while bridging the government, private sector, and community. So I'm going to show you in the next slide, the �dz Sky Park illustrate this complete idea refined through research, delivered through a government-private people's partnership opened by the Prime Minister a few years ago and also appear on the Asahi Shimbun. We're so proud. That sequence was possible because a neutral platform held the process, one that no single political actor owned or could capture. And the third one is urban acupuncture, not the citywide overhaul. So the strategic anchor investment at the transit node catalyzed a measurable private investment within the 500 meters in Bangkok. Over the intervention, move the district good walk score from 49 to 76. You're going to see, and in other city like in 𝐸𝐸t in the northeastern of Thailand that we work with, one certain public space anchor saw the commercial establishment grow from 40 to over 90 within the 5 years. So sequence matters more than the scale. And next slide, please. So this is what I mentioned. So this is an urban acupuncture that was designated as a strategic project #1 that connects the river, the eastern side of river to the west side of river in Bangkok, in the historical heart of Bangkok. So and next slide, please. So we did calculate about the good walk score before the investment committed. So you can see like how the opportunity of the economic goals, the social well-being and health improvement is going to increase after the construction of the walking network. So the last slide. So this is not next slide, please. Yes, so the city supported by the ADB member government face a shared condition. Master plan are well conceived, infrastructure financing is increasingly available, and yet integration between land use and transportation remains incomplete at the district and neighborhood level, where most of people live their daily life. So 3 actionable implications. First, measure where matters at the street level. So network coverage is insufficient, as you can see a lot in Bangkok. Street quality and walkability assessment should be a diagnostic prerequisite for every master plan, not to add on. The second, the institutionalized the neutral platform, for example, like UDC model is replicable, and actually we inspire from the UDCK in established by Todai. Without a cross-disciplinary institution which sustain mandate and community legitimacy, implementation remains hostage to the political cycle, especially here. Third, sequence investment through the evidence. So urban acupuncture like 𝐸𝐴𝐬𝐷 Sky Park at the transit node generates measurable returns and build political confidence for the next phase. So now you can see incremental investment in the plan implementation for 3 generation of the governors until now. So UDC welcomes research partnership and knowledge exchange with the city across the region. So I'm looking forward for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very, very informative and also very comprehensive. I want to continue the discussion with you and also welcome back Muraoka-san for there are several questions from the participants to him. If you're available, one question that comes is the demographic transition and also the long experience of Japan. Can you share how the Japanese master plan framework has adapted over time in response to the demographic decline, the fiscal constraints, and then the shift towards compact city models? Muraoka-san, please, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I think that, in my slide on page 8,
Yeah.
I, partly responded to the questions, you kindly raised now. When our country face population decrease, as I explained to you, our law related to city planning introduced the location optimization plan, aiming at guiding compact and compact land use. By that, assuming that the population will be decreasing, and therefore the land for the residential or urban function needs to be concentrated in order to maintain their functions or, for their operations. The land use, have been transformed from in urbanization area, we assigned some areas for restricted land use areas and also urban function introduction areas as I explained in my presentations. So by assigning such land use, we accommodate with the population decrease in planning. Do I respond to you?
Yeah, there is also a follow-up question in that the Japan tourists notice that, and also those living in Japan notice that we really focus on the public transport. The question is, how do you also address the needs of the aging population, and also more specifically address the needs of women in the urban transport and urban planning? Are there any perspectives in the policies and planning? Can you share some views?
Yeah. This is a very difficult questions, but I think that transport disadvantaged group, we acknowledge those groups, and that group includes like elderly people and kids and some groups of women who for example don't have cars or don't drive cars by themselves, or some elderly people might need to, give license back to the authority because they, they have some difficulty driving their cars. So, to address those needs of, traffic disadvantaged people, we do have some policies. We do have some, interventions that based on their voices, their needs. Yeah, that's something I can respond to you. And also like barrier-free universal designs. We have some regulations, laws that give some incentives for the transport operators to introduce those universal designs and barrier-free facilities for those people who have some difficulties of using the stations or means of transport. We do have such legal and policy frameworks. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I have one question to 𝐦𝐿𝐬𝐻-san, who was in the mini roundtable 1. There was a lot of talk about governance and also use of data in Professor Niramon's presentation, and also Professor Kidokuro spoke about it. Can you give some concrete examples from your company's experience of how to use data for the planning and monitoring? 𝐦𝐿𝐻-san, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. So as I mentioned earlier, so location data can provide various information by combining with the other data sources or applying more sophisticated analytical approaches. For example, let me raise one example of railway planning. So there was a low-performing railway in one of the national railways in Japan, and the railway company was considering the measures to upraise the use of that railway. And the first thing we need to do is kind of visualize, understand the current use of that railway. From that perspective, as I mentioned, by looking closely at the GPS location data and railway data, road network data, it is by very traditional methodology, you can visualize how many people are actually using that railway from the movement of a specific station to the another station, and how many people are using private vehicles or the public transportations like buses instead of using railways. And you can visualize the current condition of the use of the railway from that perspective. And there are some technologies where you can predict the future changes of the people's movement under if you provide some like certain hypothesis about the decision or preference of the people about the movement. And if you can combine those two, you can kind of quantify, like if you take this measure with this cost, how many people are coming back to that railway, and what is going to be the benefit for the public and the railway company? That kind of evaluation, I mean, we call that the predictive analysis, that is possible. So that is one example. And thank you very much for showing this example. This is from the example from Jakarta project when we supported the decision-making of the BRT new routes. And in this case, we simply visualized the demand for the mobility. So this is provided in the form of dashboard. So if you click on one specific area, that's going to show you the number of people who are moving from that specified area to the other areas. And also you can, on the right-hand side, there are some like time series chart showing how many numbers of people are actually moving from A to B in specific time slot, and what are the purposes of those movements. And these information, there are a lot of data, and I understand that there are a lot of like IoT tools, and you can some government bodies can have access to telecom data, but we have this capability to analyze them and visualize that into the form that can be easily interpreted by the beginners of these DIS tools. So yes, so this is like the example from our side and answer from location.
Very, very nice. We are now transitioning to the last part of the webinar, the open discussions. We are very delighted. We have over 230 people who have still joining and live. We want to give a chance to all of them to participate in the discussions. Many have typed questions. I'm going to hand it back to my colleague Vika to MC this last part, where we will get views from participants who have joined us, as well as responses to the questions from the participants, from all our speakers. Thank you all for the speakers and the panelists in the roundtable. I hand it back now to Vika.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Staram. So before we move into the open discussion, so let me ask you one more last question. So Adi, could you help me? And thank you very much. Yeah. So for the last, so if you could fix one thing about your city, what would it be? So yeah, it's very interesting. And thank you also for Dean Bambang, who joined us previously. And because Dean Bambang has another commitment, so he needs to leave the webinar. But we still have more interesting discussion with Professor Niramon, Professor 𝐦𝐿𝐻𝐿. I think a lot of questions to Professor 𝐦𝐿𝐻𝐿 and Professor Niramon, as we can see in the chat and the question also. And I hope that Muraoka-san also still joining us in this open discussion. Okay, let's end the poll, and then can you show us, Adi? Okay. Oh, everyone think that better public transport and more green spaces. They wish to have a better one in their city. Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much all. And yeah, I'm giving back again to Dr. Staram to lead the open discussion, as Dr. Staram also will lead this one and also wrap up this session after.
Thank you, Vika. I see some of our participants have views on it. In this open discussion, we want to touch on three important aspects as discussion. Of course, we want to know what are the actionable takeaways and recommendations for policymakers, practitioners from the rich discussion and sharing today. So let me now swing back to some of our participants who are here today. I see Dr. Nguyen from Singapore. I also see from Singapore another colleague, 𝐸𝐷𝐻𝐬𝐢𝐷, 𝐩𝐥𝐬𝐢𝐷. So if any of you are available, you can unmute yourself and share over to either of them. Who would like to go first? Or put your hand up, we can unmute you. Yeah, 𝐩𝐸𝐬𝐢𝐷, go ahead. Can you unmute her, please?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. It was a great pleasure to join such a wonderful seminar today. And I myself is an registered urban designer and planner in the Netherlands. At the same time, I'm kind of working on the research on water-sensitive urban design. How does resident willingness to co-invest in maintenance and operation? So I saw a lot of memorable things today to take away, but especially I think Prof. 𝐦𝐚𝐬𝐭𝐞𝐫, I think his presentation, especially talking about the vision, goal, strategy, and also the project implementation, these slides was a very insightful. And now I think move toward the long-term sustainability of the urban setting. I think we also need to probably add the operation and maintenance and also the post-evaluation to close the loop of the cycle for what we can contribute as a multiple stakeholder, including the community. And also when Professor Niramon mentioning about the, it's not spatial issue, but more for the structural issue, I kind of very much agree on this. And then especially I think people looking for the best solution nowadays and try to learn from the other cities from the best practices, but in a way that at the same time it's not easy to replicate due to the contextual sensitivity. But I guess that we can learn from what is the strengths of each city and what is the mechanism drives there. So that would be something that we can take away from the multiple presentation that we had today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, 𝐸𝐸𝐬𝐢, and you can stay on. We will ask other people and then come back to you. I have another colleague. He is actually my former boss, Peter Dias, who has joined us today. He has done work on urban development. Are you able to speak now, Mr. Peter Dias?
Yes, can you hear me?
Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me, Sita?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this very interesting seminar. And I think we need to take a more holistic view on this subject matter, which means on master planning itself, first of all. Master planning itself is a very, very ambitious undertaking. Why? It requires a strategy. It requires political support for the strategy as well as for the components of the master plan. And that is very, very difficult to obtain, particularly in countries where I live, in the Philippines. You know, if it starts with obvious matters here, endeavors to move away from car-centric transport, a greater emphasis on public transport. All this has failed miserably over the last, I would say, 20 years. So that is one thing we need to consider before we discuss too optimistically. Obviously, also then the project approach, single modes like rail transport, all very well. But even here, I quote an example of the Philippines. Rail transport has, by and large, failed. Not so much, and fortunately not so much in the urban environment, short distance transport, but medium distance transports from Makati, which is the center of the city, to further outlying areas, which has been very, very difficult. Yes, there are connections now, but the most ambitious plan was to achieve a rail from now I have to think of the direction from the north to the south, crossing Manila. By and large, that has never materialized. So sorry for this pessimistic note, but I think it's easy to discuss things like this for countries, particularly Japan, but very difficult in countries like the Philippines. Thank you, Sita.
Thank you, Mr. Peter Dias. Yes, there is a discussion about what can be done in Metro Manila, and I think there are some participants who have also asked that question. Thank you for that. Let me now ask there were many other participants who also asked questions. Instead of just me reading it out, let me ask them to ask directly. These are people who have asked questions to, I think, 𝐦𝐿𝐻𝐿 Sensei. So let me invite Mr. 𝐮𝐬𝐷 from Indonesia, and then followed by 𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿. Please ask your questions, 𝐮𝐬𝐷 first, and then 𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿 next.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, 𝐸𝐿𝐻, Professor 𝐻𝐸𝐷. So, of course, I will give appreciation to 𝐻𝐸𝐷 Sensei because shifting from conventional planning into smart city governance, I think it's very important for us, in particular for Indonesia. So my question and my comment regarding the involvement of directly the local government and also the participation of community, because smart governance means that the people and the local government as one of management. So this is regarding the involvement of community and local government. As for the Professor Niramon, I went to Bangkok last time. So my question regarding the urban transportation system, because traffic congestion and also the carrying capacity of Bangkok as a city, a metropolitan, I think it's very important how to deal with this problem in terms of urban transportation and also for the keeping the carrying capacity of Bangkok city. Thank you very much.
Professor 𝐻𝐸𝐷, would you like to respond? And then Professor Niramon later.
𝐮𝐸𝐷-san, thank you very much for your comments and valuable question. In the context of master planning, my response is that there is a very good tradition of participatory community development in many countries, of course in Indonesia too. But there is a missing link between master planning and community-based development programs. So my claim is that at the level of master plan, there should be a clear identification and positioning of community-based planning and development, so that implementation and the institutional framework to support and enable a community to develop themselves should be clearly positioned in the institutional framework to be proposed by the master planning. So that is my response.
Thank you. Professor Niramon, he had a question to you.
Thank you for your question. So the answer would be the same as like 20 years ago to move people from the private car. So we have like every day we have like 26 million trips a day in Bangkok. So, but now, as I show you that the investment of the public rail, like more than 200 kilometers and more than 250 stations. So this is the window of opportunity. So now, as we work, we support the BMA on the walkability city policy. So more than 1,000 kilometers has been improved and more. So yes, so I think first mile and last mile, it's the old formula. I think this is a very fundamental. So try to encourage people to walk more. But now with the challenge of the urban heat, so we have to think carefully about the quality of the walking environment, like the climate chill. Now we just launched a kind of like cover walkway, like that Singapore, you have extensive cover walkway. You don't expose to the sun or the rain when you go out. So now with the current governor, we did the pilot side and more to come. And also there's the question about how to use the data. 𝐦𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐬𝐬 kindly answer, and also like how to strategically allocate the budget or allocate the grid space to make the walking environment cooler, because now it's still too hot to walk. It's already, now it's at the peak of the heat. So it suppress, how to say, people to walk from the sidewalk. So actually in the past 3 years, under this governor, we planted more than 2 million trees, even more than Paris, 2 million trees in Bangkok. However, it's, how to say, they just plant randomly. If they use the data, they can strategically intervene where there's a higher heat, where there's a higher PM2.5, where is a higher in terms of the number of age population of fragile community. So this is more to come. So now we are going to work with the BMA and World Bank on cooling Bangkok. So I think this is go back to very fundamental. Just remove the car from the street and encourage people to walk more.
Excellent. We have a question from, very interesting question on SDG 11 on vulnerable groups. This is from David. Can I ask David to, can you please ask the question yourself? You can unmute yourself, please. Are you there? David? He's not able to unmute. So let me move to another question. This has come from Gerald. He has just typed it in the chat. Many cities in the Asia Pacific possess technically sound master plan, but they fail because of lack of municipal financial autonomy. So this may be Alex or Muraoka-san. Would you like to give your first response on this? Please go ahead.
I don't know whether you want me or Muraoka-san.
Yeah, you go ahead, and then I'll request Muraoka-san.
Okay, yeah, look, a good question. Municipalities, I think, will typically not be financially autonomous because there's always a disconnect between their taxation base and the level of the amount of services which are their responsibility. So they'll tend to be dependent on central government revenues. That's certainly the case in every OECD country which I've looked at. Regional or local government does get revenues from the central government. That said, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not sustainable or they're not viable. It's just a way of spending central government revenues through decentralized methods. But making infrastructure valuable, it comes back to, as you say, land value capture. I'd say land value capture does offer a way out of this. Different cities do it in different ways. I think the Japanese example around transport-oriented development for the railways was very interesting, where the railways, as they developed, granted land around the stations, and it's in effect the station revenues which help pay for the entire railway service, which is unsubsidized in a private business. But it's easy to say, land value capture, just do it. It's politically difficult, right? Like there's a lot of vested interest in making sure that land value stays private. So I think, it comes down to, is the government able to do it effectively? Can we bring in small reforms? Can we capture a small amount of value in the short term, which is non-threatening to vested interests, and then slowly ramp it up over time? I'm a big believer in incremental reforms where we try to get our foot in the door and at least capture some value, and in the long term set the foundations for capturing much more value. But yeah, I think there's no simple answers to it. I know I didn't provide a simple answer, but yeah, land value capture mechanisms can and do work if we can just get the political the will behind them.
Well, that's very good. Yeah, I agree with you. The land value capture. We have done some research in ADB Institute. The former dean of ADBI, Professor Naoki Yoshino, he tried to establish a methodology which explains the spillover effect, which is empirical in terms of incremental economic benefits measured with incremental tax revenues, incremental value of property. So those incremental revenues, he demonstrated that they can be attributed with an econometric technique of difference in difference to show how the revenues can indeed be eventually transferred back to the project or to the government, local government, or as well as to the private party if it is an infrastructure developed by the private party. And that methodology seems to be very persuasive. It kind of supplements the land value capture, which you mentioned, so it's empirical. And I think it may be an idea to also generate municipal bonds based on that incremental revenue stream, which could be giving some credibility for municipalities to show a future revenue stream which can pay back the bond. So there's some discussion in this direction. So I think that's a kind of a bigger topic that we can be another webinar on that. There is another question from Atul. I will ask him to unmute himself. Let me see if we can. Atul. Yeah. So he's asking about any relationship between TOD and ridership. Atul, you'd like to ask your question?
Hi, sir.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Sir, I want to ask, like, is there any proven relationship between this transit-oriented development and metro ridership? And if TOD is implemented at any station, like a metro station area, does it significantly increase the ridership there?
Professor Kidokoro and Professor Niramon, do you like to respond to this question?
Thank you very much. Yes, there is a relationship, of course, but in reality, in many cities, particularly in Asian cities, the TOD style development at the station area is not transit oriented so much. They are transit adjacent or development nearby the stations, but not necessarily accommodate the people who use railways or public transport. That is a problem. So in that sense, TOD should, one of the point is TOD should include the development of affordable housing nearby the stations, which those residents naturally will rely on public transport. That is one point. But actually, because of I call TOD gentrification, many developments are gentrification type, and they accommodate rather wealthier people who use cars instead of railways. That is one issue. And another problem is if the TOD type of development is confined to immediate areas of the station, it cannot produce enough ridership. So that's why station area development should be considered as a station hub to enable the broader transit-oriented development along the corridor. So those 2 points are very important to directly link the TOD and the ridership.
Yes. There is a hand up from Lulu Pan. Can you unmute Lulu Pan? Yeah, please go ahead. You have a question or comment? Are you able to unmute yourself? Yes. Can you speak? Please introduce yourself and.
Sorry, I can.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't have question.
Oh, you don't have question. Okay.
Okay. Just listening.
Thank you.
Thank you
We've
so
kind
much.
of come to the end of the session. We've had more than 2 hours of rich discussions. So sometimes we can also have a digital fatigue. I want to end with a question to all the speakers. Maybe you can have your 1-minute takeaway. You know, we are under very important positive as well as challenging situation right now. One is the technology, particularly artificial intelligence. I don't think any of us spoke about it. Like how digital and mobile phone data, the artificial intelligence is also impacting our daily lives and is expected to make more impact. In the context of the discussion that we have today, what are your immediate takeaway? Not a long response. That's one. But you can take another question, which is what we are right now in. There are a lot of global uncertainties that has created, particularly supply chains and movement of fuel, all of those things. And cities are very vulnerable, right? Because we have large population and cities cannot stop. How in the context of master planning and so on, what kind of mechanisms? These are not natural calamities. These are global uncertainties that we are right now in. So any reactions on any one of these questions or both of these questions? So in no particular order, but we can start with Muraoka-san and Professor Kidokoro, Professor Niramon, and finally Alex, in that order. So please go ahead, Muraoka-san. Any quick comments on both or any of those questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I take the global supply chain things. Yes, it's getting more and more difficult. And one of the approaches we are thinking about is that city or region needs to be more self-sustained, or we should rather we should strength the approach of endogenous development, not only focusing on the attraction of the FDIs or some like mobilization of resources from outside. Rather than that, we should focus on endogenous development and so forth. Okay, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor 𝐻𝐻𝐻.
Thank you very much. Regarding AI issue, I would like to emphasize that planning should be data-driven and AI-supported, particularly to analyze the future scenarios, possible scenarios to select. But yet, fundamentally, it should be human-centered and learning-enabled, as I emphasized in my presentation. So in that sense, the design of arenas where stakeholders and the citizens can collaborate each other, learning each other, then evolve together to develop master plan and their capacity, and at the same time institutions. So that is my comments on this AI issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Professor Niramon.
I support 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻 Sensei. Actually, we just came out from the participatory workshop of the commercial land of Chulalongkorn University. So it's like 80 hectares in the heart of Bangkok. So it's a big participatory workshop with a student, personnel, developers in and out community. So I confirm this, and actually I prepare to answer what I learned from Japanese planning. So it's a magically that I prepare to answer, but nobody asked. Okay, so so what to go back to Professor Suthiram question. So I think now Thailand is at a real wake-up call about from the energy crisis. So we depend heavily. I don't remember 80 or 90% the oil importation. So now is the time to think seriously about the electrification, about the clean energy, and about walkability. So now, Sensei, I don't have car. I walk to Chula and go back home by walking. And this is a very strange thing that people think that I'm doing. I use my legs, and this is but now no longer, because I think we are forced to walk because no gasoline available. So, and the next thing that we discuss a lot in the workshop is about maybe we're going to get some advantages from the decoupling world. Thailand is like among Asian cities that we are more or less neutral. So now we have received more and more people from the Middle East. And so why not during this economic downturn for at least, I think, 2 decades that we are in really a deep crisis in terms of economy. And I think last year we have like less than 2% of the GDP. So now we should shift like the development paradigm to really invest on the quality of the living. For example, 2.3 green area per capita, or less than 75% of walkability, especially around TOD. It should be improved in order to really receive or take opportunity when the economy go up and everything become more expensive, especially in terms of the construction. Yeah.
Thank you. Alex and 𝐸𝐺𝐻𝐻 is also there. So after Alex, 𝐸𝐺𝐻𝐻, you can also talk about these 2 questions.
Yeah, thank
Alex,
you. I'll jump up then. I won't comment on AI because it's a very big subject and I'm not an expert on it. But I actually agree with Professor Niramon. when the gas stops flowing, I always think we throw away an enormous amount of petrol every day, which is the petrol in plastic. Plastic has actually stopped flowing as well, right? So we can't packaging, but we throw it away. So circular economy, how much stuff in our cities can we reuse instead of throwing away? How much methane can we capture from our landfills that we don't have to import from Qatar? We're doing a project in Cambodia with about, we think, 9 megawatts of methane, all locally available, currently wasted, just heating up the planet. And lastly, I'd say, like Professor 𝐸𝐸𝐺, I don't have a car. I don't have one in Bangkok. I didn't have one in Hanoi. I used to just ride a bike to work. We can go back to simpler, ways of commuting. And I didn't live close in Hanoi. It was 5 kilometers away from the office. But how do we make that happen? Offices need to have showers. Southeast Asia's hot. We need to have showers. So we need to think about how do we enable all of this softer transport, simpler ways of living. And we can do it, but nobody will ride to work if there's no shower. So just a little takeaway thought. Okay, thanks. I'll drop off. Thank you, Professor
Thank
𝐸𝐸𝐺.
you,
I'll have to catch up with you
𝐸𝐸𝐺,
at
for your
JICA.
last words.
Yeah, allow me to make a few comments about the use of AI. So throughout the communication with our clients, we often observe that they know that there are a lot of data, but they are in like different format and they are not organized. So they cannot use the data for their decision making, or they can't even interpret what each data means. And we're kind of trying to create the type of AI that can go through all the geospatial information. And so, for example, if a user asks some question about the urban planning or traffic management, then the AI goes through all the geospatial information that is accessible to create the first initial answers, or the multiple possible options to that question. And we believe that can make it much more easier for the policymakers or the planners to kind of understand what is actually going on, what is actually kind of what like relative information there are in the pool of those data sets. So I think that is one way of utilizing these AI technologies. So that's the end of my comment. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. We've kind of really come to the end of our discussion. So let me hand it back to Vika and Dhyaksha. We've had very rich discussions. I think I don't need to really summarize because we are kind of converged on the various aspects of human-centric, as Professor 𝐦𝐿𝐻𝐿 mentioned, using data, and more importantly, having a planned approach and avoid making the mistakes that successful cities have done, because we can learn from them, and then we can leapfrog, and then we can also look at the new technologies, like special technologies that can be used. Thank you all for sharing your insights, and thank you for staying for this long. I think to wrap up, Vika, take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Staram, for those thoughtful closing and reflection, and then guiding us to Excellence Roundtable. And thank you also to our all distinguished speakers, Dean Bambang, Deputy Minister Abdul Malik, Alex, Muraoka-san, Professor 𝐸𝐸𝐺, Professor 𝐸𝐻𝐿𝐻, 𝐸𝐸𝐺𝐻𝐿, and for sharing your expertise and experience so generously for this session. And to all the participants and audience, surely we would like to accommodate and answer your question, but because of we have limited time, so unfortunately we couldn't address all. But hopefully next time, if we have changed to have another webinar, we surely please join again with us. And before we close, we would truly appreciate your feedback for this session. A short post-event survey will appear on your screen, so kindly scan. Okay, kindly scan this the barcode. It will be in the last. Okay, and then so it's only takes 2 to 3 minutes, and your input will help us design even better events in the future. So so please take a moment to complete And actually, in this post-event survey, we have a very mini survey related to urban master plan and then the participatory master plan. So it would be very helpful for us if you can fill it, and then hopefully we can make this one as a knowledge product from for ADBI. Okay. Yes, okay. I hope you are not too difficult to fill the questionnaire and the survey. And yeah, thank you all for spending your afternoon with us. I think today's conversation, discussion, and the dialogue has shown that urban master plan, when it's backed by the strong institution, innovative financing, technology, and also the genuine community participation, can be a transformative instrument for building prosperous and resilient cities. So we hope, and I think this is still a big homework for us. And also we hope after you leave this session, you leave with the new ideas and you can renew the energy to bring these lessons back to your own cities and communities. So yeah, once again, thank you very much for all distinguished speakers. Actually, I learned a lot to our colleague in Bappenas and a lot of questions from people from across Asia. So actually, we have questions from academia and the government from Pakistan, Turkmenistan. So yeah, hopefully we will have on the second webinar and for the master plan later. So on behalf of the Asian Development Bank Institute, and thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you at the future ADBI events. And for this event recording, please visit our event web page. So we will upload today's session in case you want to get more refresh the lecture in this webinar, and also we will upload the materials after we have all the speakers gave us the consent. So just visit our event page and have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you.